I want to go live now to retired FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Jeff Harp, and he certainly has some insight. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us last minute as well. I know that you have some insight into things like this. What stands out to you about this particular scene?
Well, hi, Juliet. Yeah, some of the things that really stand out to me is the fact I worked, 2 blocks away from there. And that is, like your previous guest said, that is a very popular metro stop. So it's not uncommon to see lots of people, loitering around, looking at things. But you have, FBI, Secret Service, DHS, there's casts of thousands of law enforcement people that work right in the area. So this was a pretty bold statement by this shooter to do this. Now, there was a couple things as we were waiting here that I was checking on with a source of mine on the ground there at the metro stop, trying to confirm the number of rounds that were fired and who possibly fired what rounds. Likely these were all fired from a semi-automatic weapon, and 15 rounds may sound like a lot, but in my mind, with 3 people involved, that's not a lot of gunfire. It's hard to say how close proximity these shots were fired from, but most of these guardsmen are carrying a sidearm and a rifle. So I think as we see the investigation unfold, we'll learn a lot more about the significance of that.
How about the fact that it was a couple of blocks away from the White House and also near a metro stop? What stands out to you there?
Well, and so there's a lot of people around, especially around Thanksgiving. There's a lot of people on holiday. People are visiting Washington, D.C. The thing that one of your other guests said that's really, prominent in my mind is the fact that these guardsmen are not undercover in any type of capacity. They stand out, very visibly in the D.C. area. So if you wanted to target somebody, obviously you can drive into D.C. It's not locked down. You can park your car pretty much anywhere on a meter. And, depending on what type of weapon you have, it's, you can walk around. People carry backpacks and other things all over D.C. So this absolutely 100% is a targeted attack. Some of the questions I have is about the pre-operational planning that took place, whether this person intended to make this happen near the White House as a political statement. We obviously have guard troops in other places across the U.S., and I know there's alerts that have gone out. I've seen those. So this is going to unfold in the next couple days, and we're going to learn more. The other previous guests also mentioned having the person's, their data, their electronic data. That's going to be scrubbed, and just to make sure that if there were others involved, that they're able to track that down.
Certainly, the footprint of the suspect and the suspect's MO. At what point do we know that in fact he acted alone, or could there be others involved?
Well, and so that's always a guess. And like the previous guest said about lone wolf attacks, these things are really, really difficult. I know there's a lot of professional people out there who look at events leading up to an attack and how they make that determination whether this person is going to be operationalized or not. And I think we will learn the same thing about this attack. What did they do that preceded the attack? What made them become operational? Was it something they did themselves? Were they encouraged by others? Was it completely done as a lone wolf? It's really hard to say. And then again, the thing that we always struggle with are the mental health conditions of folks that do these horrific acts.
What do we know moving forward? We have a holiday tomorrow. We have a parade coming up in New York. There are people gathering. What does this mean for law enforcement, for all of the agencies moving forward, for their own safety and for the public's safety?
Yeah, anytime we have a holiday coming up, and we have these, when I was in the Bureau, every year there was some sort of holiday threat that we were concerned about. That exists still today. Every holiday, anytime you have mass gatherings of people, it allows itself for an opportunity for someone to do one of these acts. And unfortunately, they can fire indiscriminately into a crowd and just targeting whoever they, want to. So that's the tough part of this job that these folks are going to have. Preventing the next attack whenever these lone wolves oftentimes are radicalized online in the privacy of their own home, protected by a lot of First Amendment activity, and yet law enforcement doesn't ever see it coming, which obviously they didn't see it coming today.
Jeff Harp, appreciate your insight. Thank you so much. We'll circle back with you. Thank you for joining us. Let's get back to our breaking news correspondent Shanelle Kaul following the latest developments right now from the newsroom. Shanelle.
And Jules, obviously a really fluid situation. Things are changing by the minute. But just to recap here for viewers who are just tuning in, look, this happened sometime before 2:42 p.m. That is when we got the first alert about this shooting. Let me tell you a bit about where this happened, because that is significant to note. So I'll share my computer screen with you here. You can see it happen at the corner of I Street Northwest and 17th Street Northwest. And if I zoom out, you can actually see that it is simply 2 blocks north of the White House. So obviously some big security concerns here. Now, here's what DC Fire had initially said happened. They said, Jules, that they had reported 3 gunshot victims. 2 of them they'd said were National Guard troops. Then later on this afternoon, we saw this post from Governor Patrick Morrisey, and on social media, he had said that those 2 National Guard troops had died, and he'd also said that they were from West Virginia. Now, a couple moments ago, he sent out a new and updated statement. Take a look at this. He now said, "We are now receiving conflicting reports about the condition of our 2 Guard members and will provide additional updates once we receive more complete information. Our prayers are with these brave service members, their families, and their entire Guard community." So at this point, it is a bit unclear about what the actual condition of those 2 National Guard troops is. As for the suspect in this case, we know that he was injured. Police say that they do have him. He was apprehended after being taken to a DC area hospital. I'll also note that we've been tracking social media reaction online from politicians really on both sides of the aisle, really expressing support for National Guard troops, the work that they do, and also thoughts and prayers for those 2 members who were impacted by the shooting today. In fact, Vice President J.D. Vance also spoke about this while he was at a Thanksgiving event in Kentucky. Take a listen to that.
I want to say first, before we get started, on a somber note, we had, and some of you may have seen this on your phones or on social media, but apparently there was a shooting outside the White House just a couple of hours ago. And we're still learning everything. We still don't know the motive. There's a lot that we haven't yet figured out. But what we do know is that a couple of National Guardsmen were injured in the line of duty. And first of all, I want everybody who's a person of faith to say a prayer for those 2 National Guardsmen, that they're able to spend Thanksgiving with their families instead of losing their lives, because I understand they're still in pretty tough condition. But I think it's a somber reminder that soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America. And as a person who goes into work every single day in that building and knows that there are a lot of people who wear the uniform of the United States Army, let me just say very personally, thank them for what they're doing. We're grateful to them, and we're praying that they're going to be safe and they're going to spend Thanksgiving with their families. God bless them.
So, Jules, as for what's happening on the ground, you know, in the moments after this shooting happened, we saw such a huge police presence, such a huge emergency response presence there. Obviously, because of where this happened as well, there was certainly a lot of interest in this. And I want to note that there is a multi-agency response to the situation. So there are secret staff members there, ATF, U.S. Marshals, Park Police, and Metropolitan Police, all assisting in this investigation. We're also awaiting a press conference from DC Police. Hopefully, we'll be able to learn a bit more about exactly how this happened and what's next.
All right, Shanelle Kaul, we'll check back with you. Shanelle, thank you.